All right, everybody, welcome to the DealGen podcast, where we talk to investors, entrepreneurs, and business titans about a wide range of topics and experiences. The DealGen podcast is brought to you by DealGen Partners. DealGen Partners is the leading deal origination service on the market for private equity buyers. DealGen Partners combines their M&A and private equity experience with a proprietary method of multi-channel marketing services that they call the Bird Dog. This unique recipe generates transaction-ready deals at an unmatched pace and increases a private equity fund's chances of closing a deal by up to 10x. Reach out to DealGen Partners before you begin searching for your next investment.
All right, Michael Ledecky, good to have you on the show, man. I'm really excited to talk to you and get caught up here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. It's been a long time coming. Looking
Yeah, no, I
forward to
agree.
chatting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This is great, man. Well, look, we'll kind of just dive right in. Obviously, you and I know each other through our different lines of work, right? You're looking to acquire a business, more of like a private equity search fund type of style. My job is obviously, I'm working with multiple acquirers to go out and find them their next acquisition opportunity. So that's kind of how we got to know each other, is just, through playing in the same field, basically. But I wanted to learn from you. Obviously, you're out there on the search um, for an acquisition. What would you say has been kind of the most difficult part of getting, an opportunity like ClayPath is off the ground? Just for someone who's not, I haven't done it personally, and for anybody out there who's listening and is thinking about maybe entering into that search fund world or purchasing a company, talk to me about some of the things that have been, I guess, a little bit more difficult than maybe you had anticipated.
Thanks, Joe. That's a great question. No shortage of interesting challenges when it comes to raising a fund and then going out and getting in front of sellers and intermediaries and ginning up deal flow. I think the toughest thing for me and probably for anybody is just the preponderance of choice out there, both in the getting started part and deciding how you want to structure your fund and what you want that to look like, and then maybe even more so when you're actually in it and you have a very open mandate and maybe a flexible investor base. You can go in so many different directions from an industry perspective, and that's the one thing that I think I've been most challenged with. Maybe it's my own personality partly, maybe it's just the nature of the search. I've it's I think when I was looking at the search fund space from the outside, I was very convinced that the industry focused approach was the way to go, and
Hmm.
I still believe in that to a certain extent, but I don't think I appreciated on the outside looking in just how hard it would be to stay focused on an industry and continue to build on an industry. And 7 months in, I think I'm still looking to get momentum in a single industry, and
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there's more that I can do from that perspective. Um, but yeah, I
I can
think
totally see
that
how that could be.
the power of focus, I think, is it's important, and it's I think it's underrated, or it's a rated skill to have, and I think one that I'm still building up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think they're just a great way to get educated. From if you listen to the right ones, and they're around topics that you're interested in. And it's funny because I see, like, in real estate, or even with some of the very, like, seasoned private equity funds that we work with, where um they do have that kind of core focus, and they just, once they get into that sector, like, they can basically, at this point in time, back of the napkin underwrite deals, right? Because they're so focused on what they do, they know it so inside and out, that as soon as an opportunity comes across their desk that they think, they can quickly determine whether or not it's a fit or not. And I think that is something that's probably, it comes with having success in an industry already. I mean, they've acquired before, they've successfully you know, grown and then maybe sold off these assets. So they know what it's like, they know what it takes. Um, but they've also, just chosen something that not only they're interested in, but now they're building like a name for themselves in that space. So they get sent a lot more opportunities, right? And that's where, if you're looking at one, technology company, well, it's easy to kind of get lost in that one deal. But if you have 10 options in front of you, yes, you have to apply focus, but you can quickly narrow down, all right, of these 10, what are the one or two that are the best for whatever reason? And then I'm going to only focus on those ones. And so I think that like all this stuff that we're talking about when it comes to focus, it's hard at the beginning when you're looking to execute for the first time, but I think it just comes with, maturity in the industry and maturity within that one sector where you can quickly just start spotting opportunity. And once you know what to look for, and once you can spot opportunity, I mean, there's enough opportunity and money in available companies out there in all these different industries to succeed. And that's at least what I've seen, not from someone who's done it, but when I watch some of these seasoned guys that we work with, and how they apply focus, it seems to be where it's coming from.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that observation. Um, I think that, the a searcher once told me that it's hard to have an industry thesis until you've been under LOI with a company in that industry. So that I think that's an interesting piece of advice. And I think
Mhm.
also just really, yeah, thinking about, the industries that speak to you from a personal interest perspective and what
Right.
gets you excited. And I think, over several months I've narrowed down to, a few different areas that do get me excited and do get me, pumped up.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and and it's I think now as I sit, 6 months into my search, I can ask myself the question, how do I become the preferred buyer in this industry? And I think there's so much power in that. And
Right.
building a brand and telling a story and the storytelling piece is another piece that I think is an underrated skill and an important thing to think about as you're starting a search and continuing to hone as you get in to the middle of it. I was just listening to your first podcast with Brian, and I think you guys faced kind of similar question, or
Yeah.
what I loved about how you approached your work is that you continually refined your product. You continually asked yourself, what story am I telling? How am I selling my service and making it better and better and listening to customers, or in my case sellers, over
Hmm.
time, and understand how they're reacting to you and understand what value you can provide and how you can provide more of it and continue to give.
Right. Yeah. No, it's spot on. That storytelling thing is really powerful when you can craft a story. I mean, because you're competing probably in some instances on whether you're competing with other potential buyers or you're just competing with um, the general market or the seller's other opportunities, which might be just to keep running their business or something. Um, you have to. It's not just about like, hey, I have money, let's talk. It's you have to convince them that you're the person that is should be responsible for taking over or buying a piece of or buying the entirety of something that they've grown. You know what I mean? Something that they've been a part of for a long time. And when you actually step back and think about it like that, there is a lot of nuance to being able to have those conversations with someone who's selling a business. And yeah, and I mean, coming back to what you were talking about, with our podcast, Brian and I, something that we're always, I think that just the awareness of like, hey, there's always something I can learn from. Um, all right, I just got off a call with in our instance a fund that we were pitching our services for, and maybe the call went really well, but like what could we have is there wording that we could have used, like different wording, at the beginning? We know what we do. We provide you know turnkey business development for private equity funds. I can say that now in my sleep, but before, we continued to craft that, rhetoric. Um, it would take me 30 seconds to explain what we do. And in that 30 seconds, you may have already lost that person because they're like, wait, what? But now, like, just constantly refining who you are, what you do, what value you can add, being able to kind of pitch it concisely and with conviction. you know, again, that just kind of comes with really getting in there and going through the motions, right? You're not just gonna, hop on a bench press and start putting up 315. Like you got to do the reps. You got to do the reps. You got to do the reps. And that's one thing that is another big part of it too, is that I'm sure going into this, you might have been like, hey, I just got to find a couple companies for sale and I'll get one pretty quickly. And then it's like, no, you have to send out a lot of marketing materials, have a lot of different phone calls, go through a lot of different pitch decks, make probably quite a few offers, even get under LOI a couple times, and then maybe you'll find that one that fits. And it's like, oh, well, this is a little bit more nuanced than maybe I thought. Now, as someone who's agnostic, like we talked about this, what are other qualities, obviously industry is one thing, but like qualities of a business that you have to look for before you even dive in? Like what things are you looking at? Here's a software company over here. Here's a HVAC company over here. Here's a oil and gas company over here. What are the things outside of just the industry that you need to look for and see before you even go down a road of potentially pursuing?
For sure. And yeah, I'd say I'm not 100% agnostic, but yeah, as you can tell, very flexible and open and have been
Right.
jumping around industries. But yeah, I think in general, what we're looking for is growth, health of the revenue, return on tangible capital, capital efficient businesses. I think that's an underrated part. And then, I think then connecting that with my non-economic preferences around, you know, the community I'm serving, uh, the mission of the company. I think I've been drawn to a health and wellness mission. I've been drawn to the idea
Hmm.
of supporting industrial infrastructure and supporting human capital development, kind of coming from my experience in education tech. But yeah, I think the first economic criteria I look at from the company perspective is growth, revenue health, and return on tangible capital. And then the second tier considerations would have to be customer concentration, um, you know the the state of the competition, the various the network effects that drive that business forward and will help that business continue to grow. Well, what value can I provide to the
Hmm.
company? I'm looking for companies that have a great product and maybe it's a great technical founder on the software side, but they might need more support from a sales and marketing perspective where I'm coming from. So
Hmm.
thinking about where I can add value and where I can step in and as an operator add value from if not from day one, at least from day 90 or 100 as I learn the business.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Now, do you have, let's say, for example, you land on that company, right? All these things that you're talking about, the stars align, it looks good, you make an offer, you get an LOI under agreement. Um, to this point, in talking to other searchers or, just in throughout your journey, what are some of the important things or maybe what are some things that get overlooked during the diligence process of buying a company that, oftentimes maybe other people aren't thinking about, like, I know obviously you have to do a lot of upfront diligence before you even make an LOI, but then you actually go into buying the business, and figuring, okay, I got this thing under LOI. What do you need to look for at that stage in this journey?
I think once you're under LOI, it continues to be a matter of building relationships and building trust among
Hmm.
the management team and or the seller and the broker. Um, I think I've heard searchers stories in which they feel like they've overlooked certain things in order to get a deal done, and I think it's important to think about what some of those things are. Some of them could be as fundamental as the character of the seller
Right.
and the ease with which to work with them, just the extent to which they're a good person, that can go just such a long way, I think,
Oh, for
in the
sure.
success of a deal and a potential partnership. And I've seen, deals fall apart deep into diligence because of that. I've seen deals fall apart after diligence, after,
Yep.
you know, deal closes and then things get uncovered, whether it's illegal, fraudulent things or it's things just as simple as this is, a toxic individual that's created a really brittle command and control structure or
Right.
a lack of trust among employees. So I think that's something to that I will also pay attention to, and
Yeah.
it's something that might not be necessarily at the top of your list when you're really focused on those economic criteria, and because there are only so many so many companies that maybe fit recurring revenue, strong growth, strong return on
Yep.
tangible capital that it's easy to overlook the personal aspect. So I think that's important in diligence. I think developing trust, developing confidence that we're going to get this deal done at the same time, and providing quick answers.
Yep.
I think that's important.
I think your point on trust and working, getting to know um, the person that's selling the company is definitely, at least in my experience. I've actually back, prior to really in full time, had been looking at some companies to acquire potentially, just in, call it 3, 4 years ago maybe. And in doing so, it's easy to get caught up in the industry and maybe there's, tailwinds to the industry and like you said, the economics of the actual business themselves, and just completely overlook the fact that like there's another person that's currently running this thing and that you need to be completely aligned with them, and at least from like a character standpoint and from a, hey, what's the goal of this transaction standpoint. And now fast forward, working with, a number of different buyers and working with them directly. Um, we work with this one individual who won't even like step one is, just get me on the Zoom or get me on a phone call with the seller because I want to ask them direct questions. I want to get to know them. I want to see their cadence. I want to see their body language, like things like that. This person's been buying companies for 20 plus years. And that's like their first criteria is that like, I guess the pro forma and everything like that could look great, but that doesn't matter as much as hopping on the Zoom and just talking to the individual that's selling this business because they've realized in their 20 years or 2 plus decades of doing this how just important, like truly important, that piece of this whole marriage is. And that's something that I would have overlooked, if I was out there um, shopping for a business. I think I would have overlooked that completely. I'm glad we talked about it because it's one of those things where I think a lot of people that may be listening to the show, at some point or another, um, are interested in getting involved in this maybe private equity space or doing a search fund type of deal, or maybe doing a bolt on for an existing company that they already own. And I'm happy you brought that up because I think that trust in the other side is so important, and just achieving success in what you actually want.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an important consideration, especially when you think that we're on the clock. We need to get something done. We see something that, our investors would, gladly invest in based off of the financials and the sim that you put together.
Right.
But they're also trusting you to make that character assessment. And
Hmm.
that's that's something to keep front and center.
For sure. Now, we don't have to go down the accolades or anything like that, but you come from a pretty competitive sports family, correct?
That I do. Yeah, it's been pretty fun, this
Yeah.
last decade or so.
No, that's awesome. I mean, a wild ride. So, what is, I know I'm asking you a lot of questions that revolve around kind of the same thing, but
Yeah.
what is competitive sports, particularly, I think it would be swimming for you guys. How has that made an impact on, your business career? And then, what kind of characteristics do you think you take out of that journey, true competitive sports that, you see as you now are stepping into potentially acquiring a company? What type of characteristics do you think that's playing those sports and having that upbringing you're gonna bring forward to, this new venture?
Yeah, so for the audience's background, Katie Ledecky is my little sister. Uh, I could list up out all of her accolades, but AP Athlete of the Year last year, uh, all-time leader in most combined Olympic gold medals and World Championship gold medals for women's swimming. 15 world records. Maybe I got that wrong. It depends on how you count it. And yeah, has won seven Olympic gold medals and three silver medals in her career. So proud of her. We grew up swimming together, starting when she was about 6 years old. I was 9 years old, just swimming for our local swim and tennis club, and we got into swimming mostly through our mom, who was also a competitive swimmer and a state record holder in North Dakota, and also have some pretty special sports connections on my dad's side of the family. My uncle's a co-owner of the New York Islanders. He was a minority owner of the Washington Capitals and Wizards when I was maybe 5 or 6. So we got early exposure going to a lot of pro sports games, and I think that had a pretty profound impact on me and
Yeah.
my sister. And
Mhm.
we understood what it meant to be a professional athlete early in our lives. And who would have thought that my sister could actually make a career in professional swimming? Yeah, that's not some. There are maybe only a handful of folks on the planet that can really sustain themselves just by doing competitive swimming. It's probably
Right.
more these days, but you just think about the road that guys like Michael Phelps paved for my sister as well.
Right.
Growing up watching him swim in Maryland, where we grew up in the DC area,
Mhm.
which I think also being just in the DC area, I think uh, has a powerful effect. Being around so many interesting people
Mhm.
from diverse backgrounds that uh, I, in an area where I think education is super highly valued, maybe sometimes even overvalued from a credential perspective. But
Right.
yeah, that the bar is just really high, and I think that was important for me and my sister as we grew up. So
Yeah.
as far as I think that environment and my family, I think we are a family that um, has a competitive a competitive mindset. I mean, we like the idea of stepping up and putting our best out there for the world, and setting goals, and setting you know challenges for ourselves, and also thinking about how we can you know make ourselves better as individuals, and also hopefully you know do well by our communities, and do well by the people around us, and make the folks around us proud. And I think that goal setting mindset was maybe something that pushed me into the search fund world a little bit.
Yeah.
Seemed
Yeah.
like you're going out, you're setting a goal, you've got a timeline, and it, there was something about it that just felt, I guess, maybe more connected to my previous experience than the idea
Yeah.
of just starting a new venture. Even though I'm sure I would have drawn lessons from swimming, and my previous experiences if I were doing a startup. But
Mhm.
I think it does almost feel like I'm behind the blocks right now, or I'm either behind the blocks, on the blocks, or somewhere in the pool right now. Hopefully somewhere in the pool, getting toward the finish line. But it's yeah, it feels like it feels like this is a distance race, and you gotta kind of have that mindset that you're trying to get better just a little bit every day right now. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do right now with the search. Just try to do something every day that gets me closer to that goal. And that, I think, was the mindset when I was swimming competitively, and
Right.
it's certainly my sister's mindset today as she's training for her fourth Olympics.
Wow. Yeah. That's I mean, yeah. If you just do a quick Google search on that stuff, it's crazy. But no, going back to everything you just talked about, I think it's, incredibly important. And I feel like that type of competitive upbringing, be you setting the bar high, having mentors, that you can kind of look up to, like in your case, maybe parents, other competitive swimmers, your uncle, who are achieving big things, and you get to see that and kind of set that expectation, and then realize that, like, hey, these things don't happen overnight. This is like the accomplishments are literally days and days and days and weeks and months and years compounded over and over and over again, to achieve that level of success, and probably doing things when you don't want to, probably, working, whether it's, in the pool for hours and hours a day or behind the computer, looking through 10, 12 deals at a time, trying to figure out which ones, are worth doing. You have that mentality kind of pre-built in you, I guess, as an athlete, that, hey, these things take time. If you want to be the best, if you want to achieve what you're trying to set out to achieve, you need to recognize that, yeah, you might have some God-given abilities, but, in reality, anything that's been accomplished, from a large and, substantial, anything substantial has just been years of compounded day after day after day work, and I think that those lessons that, growing up, even playing baseball and, playing competitively in college, it's like we had class and then we practice for 3 hours, either before or after every single day. And like sometimes those days just get meshed together because it's like Groundhog Day. But that's how you end up getting truly better at something. That's how you end up getting, you know, accomplishing not only that ability to play in high school, but then hitting when no one else is hitting and getting to the point where you can play in college. And I don't know, there's just so many different things that you can take away from having a background in that I think, um, I always am interested in hearing from people who, have achieved athletic, success, and then now are, transitioning that into more of the business world.
Yeah. And I think the helpful part about the athlete's mindset is having a comfort with, chipping away little by little every day toward that one day when you get that outsized achievement, that outsized accomplishment that makes you say, "This is all worth it." There were a
Right.
lot of games or uh, you know, opportunities in life in which maybe the rewards feel a little bit more linear relative to the effort that you put forth. And I
Right.
think it's having that comfort of kind of, toiling away a little bit in obscurity for many months or many years, and then finally getting to that stage where all of a sudden you're winning gold medals and setting
Yeah.
world records.
And you can deal with adversity too, right? Like, if you take swimming, for example, like you're behind the blocks, you might not get that good start that you wanted, right? You might not have gotten that good initial push, but you still got to swim that race. Like, you just, because that happened at the beginning doesn't mean the race is over. You know what I mean? You still got to go and accomplish it. And if you start out behind the eight ball a little bit, you got to try to work your way in the front. And I think that's another thing too, is that, like, we're kind of used to, with an athletic mindset, um, dealing with adversity, dealing with things like, hey, this just isn't going our way. First inning, we're down 4-0. Well, we still have 8 innings left to play this game. Like, the time doesn't run out. You know what I mean? So we have to either pack it in and call it quits, or figure out how we're going to grind out of this hole. And I think that mentality is especially personally for me in business. This is not an easy thing to do. Like, run a company or anything like that. And most of the days are nothing big and exciting happens. It's just like I got to wake up and do the little things that go into hopefully one day that big exciting thing happening.
No
So I got a
doubt.
couple more like just kind of not necessarily well, I guess personal questions, but so for you, we're both still relatively young for our business careers, but you know, take me back to I guess when you had just graduated college. What's after being in the real world, you should say for some time. Like, what's some advice that you would give to your maybe 22, 23-year-old self, um, knowing what you know now?
That's a great question, and I still reflect on that a little bit. It's easy to look back and think about, what advice I would have given myself, and I there's a benefit to that, I think, in that then you can think about how how to move yourself forward and what uh, okay, if that's the advice that I'm giving myself a few years ago, what advice would I give myself today? And what can I do to be
Right,
better
right.
as I feel like I am just getting started
I
out
like that
right now,
mentality.
and
Yeah.
I'm 28. I'm going to be 29 in May. Uh, it's this was this it's been a really interesting learning experience being in this position. I think, looking back at, me coming out of college, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't really invest much time into thinking about that in college.
Same.
I did things in college that, looking back, I think helped me a lot and at least gave me a great base of friends who I really value. I was on the school newspaper and the radio. I covered the men's hockey team.
Hmm.
And I think I still kind of take a journalist's approach to what I'm doing now.
Hmm.
I came out of school and worked as a paralegal or a paralegal's assistant for about 5 months for a constitutional law firm. It was kind of a boutique practice that then got merged into Kirkland and Ellis. And around that time of the merger, I was considering, what pathways I could take and do I really want to take the LSAT and try to become a lawyer? And I think that the business world started to call to me a little bit. I liked the idea of getting into sports business, specifically coming from that sports journalist's perspective.
Hmm.
And I think I got some good advice from some folks that really pushed me to think about developing a skill set that was more oriented around around sales and developing that base early in my career. And that wasn't something that I had given any thought to in college. I think
Right.
I might have thought of sales as more of a blue collar thing almost, or something that people not coming out of Harvard College necessarily do.
Right.
But I think once I got into that position with the company I joined, a company called EverFi based in DC, I think I just really loved the idea of having the opportunity to reach out to interesting people, have a conversation, be a journalist, and kind of ask questions and get toward what their needs were and how we could help, and framing an argument around how we could help.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy I made that switch. So, I think if I were to give myself advice, it would have been to have, been maybe a little bit more open, even in college, to thinking about developing that sales skill set and thinking about, what other skills that I wanted to develop alongside that, whether that was finance or people management, which are all things that I think I developed a little bit later after that move into to EverFi. And I think to a certain extent, I'm still developing now and
Yep.
still working on and being, I think, a lot more conscious of. And I think also I would have advised myself in that early career seat to continue to push myself to think about, how am I learning? How am I uh, developing my skills? Really using those 5 to 10 years out of college. I'm still less than 10 years out of college, to to optimize for learning. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that, you know, you know, that's a responsibility that I think somebody coming out of college needs to accept for themselves and think about, how can I individually push myself to learn, but then also how can I push myself to or how can I push the folks around me, my mentors, my folks at work to give me more responsibility. If I feel like I'm not getting that structure to learn, go out and tell them directly, I need more structure to learn here. Or maybe you could also maybe feel the opposite problem, which is feeling maybe too restricted and not having too much structure or not giving being given enough opportunities. And I think it's an important balance of advocating for yourself and also seeking out opportunities, whether it's within the structure of what you're doing now and where
Hmm.
you are now in your career and your job, or developing something outside of that job where that will continue to help you to learn and develop those skills that you've defined for yourself.
Yeah. No, it's a great answer. I mean, once you're out of the structure of, I guess, school, right? There aren't really any parameters for you to continue to learn unless you set them for yourself. So it's like, am I going to learn outside of college on my own? Am I going to, attach myself to some sort of mentor figure and learn directly from them? Am I going to take a job that, maybe isn't a field that I'm really interested in, but know nothing about and learn that? But it's kind of up to you, at that point in your life to make those conscious decisions, because no one's at that point, no one's really telling you what to do. You don't have to show up for class every day. Um, I think that I think that's super important too. It's some really good, insightful advice, for sure. My last question for you, Michael, is simple one, but it always intrigues me. What's the best thing you think you bought for under $100 recently?
This was one that I was struggling with a little bit over lunch as I was munching on my $10 salad at from the Upper
It could
West
be the
Side.
salad.
It's
Could
not.
be.
I don't think it's a salad, but I'm not super materialistic. I feel like I I keep the same wardrobe maybe too long. I'm not. I probably pay probably spend most of my money on food and maybe travel.
Right.
I think, one thing I thought of, which is very personal to me, is my favorite band is the Hold Steady, which is a pretty cult band. I feel like either you know who the Hold Steady are and they're your favorite band, or you've never heard of them. I
Yeah.
was actually just at a little concert they did last night at after they were on the Seth Meyers show. They played a little concert for maybe 100 people
Wow.
at a record store in Manhattan. And their typical tickets are maybe $30 at a maybe a 3,000 person venue. So they play smaller venues. Some people call them the best bar band in
Yeah.
America. They kind of take after Springsteen a little bit, who is
Yep.
my dad's favorite artist, and he's actually coming up to New York to see him, and I'll be there with him.
Oh,
And
that'd be awesome.
those tickets are thousands of dollars, but meanwhile the Hold Steady ticket is $30, and I feel like I just get so much joy out of seeing them perform live and being part of that little fan base or community. It actually is kind of a niche community of
That's
Hold
great.
Steady super fans. I've got a friend down in Florida. We text about music all the time, and uh, I think that's like a nice little life hack to find something where it's like, whether it's a band or something else that's a little obscure that maybe not everybody appreciates, and just really diving in and taking a lot of joy from that. So that I think that might be my answer.
Good answer.
A $30 Hold Steady ticket.
Good answer. I gotta check out this Hold Steady band. I mean,
Yeah, actually, you might be able to see in my background. I've got their new album behind me. They signed a CD for me, even though I don't really have a CD player. But that's in the background with my plant there.
That's good,
Impressive
man. That's good.
progress.
You
check it
remind me,
out.
dude, remind me of myself when you say, not a material person. Like my answer to that question, which I don't think I've actually ever said on the show, would be, I have this thing in my trunk. I play golf, right? And I'm getting okay at it, but it's a container of like 50 old beat up used golf balls that you can just drop in like a high school field, and you can hit them and then you go pick them back up with
Oh,
the
I love it.
machine. This thing was like literally a $15 yard sale item. Like, and I don't even go to yard sales, but I spotted this thing when I was driving by. I was like, I need one of those. I grabbed it, and I tell my wife sometimes, like, you could buy me like a $5,000 Rolex, and I would like my little golf ball scooper better still. Like I think like is all I really need after a long day of work. Just go
Yes.
smack some around a high school, and like I feel better about it. And
Oh, that's so
just fun
satisfying.
little things that are
I love that.
you don't need to spend a ton of money on some crazy thing. Like all I need is that little scoop and a 7 iron, and I can have a day.
Amazing. I love it.
Well, look, man, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights about the search fund world and what you're going through right now, and maybe what you're anticipating going through. Hopefully, here soon in the future when you find the right company. And this has been awesome. And I hope that maybe we could do this again in maybe 6 months from now when you're hopefully heading a new venture, right? A company that you just bought.
Yeah, I'll call my shot right now. Let's talk in 6 months and talk about operating a small business. I'd love that.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Well, look, enjoy the rest of the day. I really appreciate you coming on here, and looking forward to talking again soon.
Really appreciate you, Joe. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, man.